What's going on, my friends? Leo Cannell here with today's episode. We've got an amazing guest for you who's going to help you change your life, change your results. And as always, our focus here on the Seven Figures Club podcast is to help you, the small business owner, the entrepreneur, the startup, the side hustler, to get into the 5% of businesses in the so-called Seven Figures Club who earn seven figures in annual sales revenue and income. And today's guest is going to be an amazing person to help you do just that. Today, we've got Shawn SHEWCHUK. Did I say that right, Shawn?
You did.
All right. And Shawn has been described as the results specialist. He's a business coach, consultant, facilitates a positive outcome for others. Every individual or organization that Shawn partners with benefits from his extensive network of contacts and friends. He's frequently asked to speak at events around the world and is sought out as the expert on the topics of business, success, and results by media outlets and publications across North America and abroad. He is the author of numerous publications, articles, and ebooks, including the bestseller, Change Your Mind, Change Your Results. Shawn is the #1 results coach in the country, and he's been blessed with an amazing life and team. And the Change Your Results headquarters, studio, and training center are located in beautiful Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Shawn, welcome to the show.
There are over 32 million businesses in the US, and over 90% of them will never break seven figures in annual sales. So how do we as entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs break into that seven figures club? This podcast will relentlessly share the secrets, strategies, and tactics I've used to create 3 multi-seven figures businesses and bring in even more successful entrepreneurs than me to share their inspirational stories and tactics to success. You can create your dream business and life right now. So buckle up and let's go.
Thank you so much.
All right, Shawn, as we jump into these podcasts, we love to find out more about our guests, what makes them tick, and ultimately, what are some of the events, maybe the way you were raised, that kind of led you down the path to entrepreneurship?
I actually was on one yesterday in the afternoon, and this question came up. My background was definitely grew up in an entrepreneurial home, but I vowed probably when I was in high school, I would never, ever become an entrepreneur. I wanted no part of it.
Oh, wow.
God bless my dad, he's long passed, but I remember being a kid of 10, 11, 12, 13, and having to work till on the weekends till 2, 3 in the morning because it had to get done. And I wanted, quite frankly, no part of that as I grew older. But definitely the entrepreneurial spirit was there. After high school, I moved from small town to a much larger city, and I got myself a job, and then quickly found out I was what I call highly unemployable.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think now 44 companies in that I've started, built, and benefited from. I built the largest independent management consulting firm in Western Canada in about 7.5 years, to about $133 million a year when I sold it back in 2007, along with a whole bunch more that we've done some cool things with and had some fun with over the years. But definitely there was certainly a foundation there, although certainly at that point in time, not what I wanted.
Interesting. So that was kind of the breakdown. Your father was an entrepreneur, and you kind of learned, it sounds like you learned some values and principles of hard work. You get out of school and you're like, actually, yeah, I don't want to spend 40 hours building someone else's dream. I'd rather spend 80 hours kind of building my dream. So what was the first business that you launched?
It's interesting. I actually wanted the 40 hours. I didn't want.
No, you didn't want the 80 hours.
Nothing
you were tired
to do
of
with entrepreneurship. Nothing. As far as I'm concerned, it was for crazy people.
Yeah.
And
there's no doubt about that.
Well, there's truth to that. You're not wrong. Back when I was 13 years old, much longer before the internet was anything what it is today.
Yeah.
I was reading a magazine. The back of the magazine, there was a little classified ad, and it something to the effect of, help businesses grow or succeed, something to that effect. And I asked my parents to write a check, and they did, and the book, and I still have the book, as a matter of fact.
Well, that's cool.
And basically, it was a watered down version of management consulting. But I grew up rural. I was a farm kid, and how do you who do you consult with? The cattle down the lane? That's just not the environment. And I was in school. So that's kind of that was step one. I had this immense amount of curiosity around how, I'll use the term consulting because in those days, coaching had, I was a coach before there was a coach, so to speak, or before coaching existed. And truth be told, I'm not really a fan of the word coach or coaching, of those words. I think there's a stigma attached to them, perhaps not as positive as it once was. However, it is certainly the accepted, terminology. The first business to go to the next step, the first business was very simply, the coaching side of things. I'd gone to school and thought I knew everything, and still don't, but started knocking on doors when I was about 21 years old, maybe 22, and very simply helping them out as I had learned in that book and a few other things over the course of time. And even when I worked for larger companies, one of the interesting things was nobody was catering to small business. And while we talk about, especially today, small business being the driver of our economy, if we go back a number of years, there were no companies that were involved. Yeah, there was the odd person here or there. So I went out and I think I spent $13 on 500 black and white business cards. There was no email address. There was a phone number and my name, and that was, pretty much the extent of it. It said business consultant, and I started knocking on doors. And that's really where it started. Now, I have carried that through ever since then. I've had my fingers in a whole bunch of pies and done a whole bunch of things, gone back to school a few times. But the one constant has always been that. So well over 11,500 clients, both business and individual. The focus when it comes to that is really working with leadership and working with entrepreneurs and high achievers.
Absolutely. So in those early years as an early business consultant, before business coaching was even a thing, what were some of the results that you were helping those small business owners to achieve?
It's really interesting. Most people, even today, whether it's back in the 90s or today, most entrepreneurs today are focused on what they quote unquote need to do or what needs to get done. And the challenge with all that, well, a lot of it is true. Those things need to get done. The unfortunate part of this is, most of the time, it's the wrong person doing whatever it is that needs to get done. The entrepreneur shouldn't be doing everything. Although we talk about wearing numerous hats and et cetera, the reality is that we get caught up doing the wrong things. And I can recall very distinctly here, just a couple of years ago, I was working with a company, mom and pop, started in the basement of their basement bedroom, and they blew it up over the course, a short period of time, actually, to about $25 million a year. And we started working together, and the first day, the wife phoned me. She says, "Oh my goodness, Shawn, you are not going to believe we had this incredible day. We put in 18 hours." And I said, I love your work ethic. Tell me something. What did you accomplish today? How did you move your company forward? She said, "Well, we emptied the waste paper baskets at the end of the day, and we cleaned the bathrooms at the end." And I said, "Okay, time out. I think maybe we need to have a conversation." She says, "Well, it needs to get done," and she's not wrong. Those things, but that's not what she should be doing, or her husband in that case. And so once we start to understand, and this goes all the way back to when I started, once we understand what are those priorities. Now, terminology's changed and methodologies have changed, but the fundamentals have never changed. Once we understand what we as entrepreneurs should be doing and what we should not be doing, all of a sudden the dynamic shifts. You cannot begin to scale a business until you know what you should not be doing. And every single person got into business for a similar reason. Some people say, "Well, I didn't want a boss. I wanted to work for myself." But at the end of the day, it comes down to one simple word: freedom. Freedom is defined as the ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want. That is everything.
Yes.
And if we get out of that, where we're putting more time into our businesses than when we had a traditional job, we defeated the whole purpose of going into business in the first place, and we just bought ourselves a job. In
a really busy job that takes everything.
100%. And we don't get to do those things that we said were priorities, spending time with family, traveling, or whatever those things are that are important to you. Michael Lee Gerber talks about this in E-Myth, where he says most entrepreneurs, just because you have a business or a corporation doesn't mean you're an entrepreneur, right? Most entrepreneurs, or so-called entrepreneurs, are technicians suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. And so most people do that. Here's the interesting part, and here's what I realized very early on. It doesn't matter what you do. You can be a great consultant. You can be a plumber. You can be a welder. You can be whatever. It doesn't matter. Most entrepreneurs get up in the morning, and most are really good at what they do. But what they're doing is looking for fires to put out, one, because they fell behind the day before, the week, the month, the year, whatever it was. And so they're constantly chasing their own tail to play catch up. And the things that get addressed are the things with the bigger flame. Okay. And the other one is when there is something that has to get done, it's imperative, and they know that it's them that should be doing it. It gets relegated to the back of the desk, the front of the truck, the back, whatever it is, because they're focused on putting out fires. And people look at me, some people say, Shawn, that is not the case until we start working together. Other people, especially when I speak, to an audience, they'll say, Shawn, oh my goodness, I can see myself in what you're saying. This is me. It resonates with me. And a vast majority, that's the case, because we get busy and we get head down on the other end in the air. We're missing out on opportunities, and we're not focused on the things that we should be focused, or executing on the things we should be executing on. We're just doing what needs, quote unquote, to get done. And we're not making the progress we initially set out to. I met with a couple, goes back now about 4 or 5 years, and a vast majority of our client base is in the United States. I get the privilege to speak a great deal in the US. And I stepped off a stage and they approached me. We had a conversation, and they were at another event about 6 or 8 months later. And so they came up to say hi, and they said, hey, how is this? They'd set some pretty lofty goals. We know what Jim Collins calls, big, hairy, audacious goals. And I said, how is that coming? Yeah. They both kind of went quiet. And I said, what's happening? And they said, well, we're still thinking about how to do this. And I said, listen, what got you to where you are isn't going to get you to where you want to go. You have to do something dramatically different. If you're going to go from $100,000 a year to $1 million a year or more, you're going to have to do something different. The challenge is we talk about it, we think about it, we procrastinate over it, but actually making those dramatic shifts and changes doesn't happen. And there's a reason. Because I'm a simple guy. I grew up on a farm. You can eat a whole apple, but there's a good chance you can't eat it in one bite. Okay. So when we've done something, let's say that I generated $100,000 last year. I already know how to do this. Right? That's why setting a goal is intended for only one purpose, and that's growth. So if I set a goal at 100,000, obviously then it's not a goal, so we have to set it higher. But if we've never been at $1 million, it's very hard for us to grasp. If we take that and we break it down into those bite-sized pieces, what happens is now we can actually accomplish this and then move past it to the next one. And that has to become part of the process, not just I want something grandiose, which is great, but we have to do it in a certain way.
No question. So in terms of that foundation, you talked a little bit about it, and Michael Gerber certainly does, of working on the business instead of in the business. At the beginning, you have to work in the business. You have to figure out the model, proof of concept, generate sales. And then there's a turning point where you have to be able to, as Michael talks in that story about, was it a pie store or something like that, where you have to have the team start doing the technical work so you can actually grow and scale that business. And why is that such a difficult step? And what are some of those keys that people can focus on, start getting the team and people, and replace the $10 an hour job that they should not be doing?
It goes back to what we talked about a moment ago, where you, unless you know what you shouldn't be doing, or you should not be doing, you can't start to scale. But there's another step to that, and I share this very openly. When I built a few big companies, and one of the initially the challenge I had was actually letting go. Yeah, because an entrepreneur's baby, that's my baby, and so letting go, in other words, installing a CEO is a huge challenge, because I had to let go. And I share the story very openly. A number of years ago, and this was with the consulting company we talked about a moment ago, I think we're somewhere around $9 million. And I hired a CEO, and we did a search, and we did all our due diligence, and we had all our conversations and interviews, and hired this guy. Fantastic. The guy he's incredible. And the day after, I showed up at the office at 6 a.m, and he looked at me and said, Shawn, what are you doing here? I said, I'm coming to work. He said, remember, you hired me for a reason. Don't get in my way. And I was like, how dare you? But he was right. He was tasked with something specific. And for me, it was difficult. There are times I had to bite my tongue. I had to close my office door. Now, I was very active. I was very much involved every step of the way, but we wouldn't have taken that company to where it went to without having that, without me letting go, without me realizing. And it was tough. It was difficult. but it had to happen. And so that's where most people get hung up. If you're in the entrepreneurial space, you're doing well, you're doing good. Good is the enemy of great, as you know. If you want to move past that, you know there's more potential. The only thing stopping you is something up here. And so about 50% of the time, yes, we talk about business and we talk about marketing and we talk about all these things. But at the end of the day, 50% of the time when I'm working with a team or an individual or a leader, it's what's going on here.
Oh, yeah. That the mindset, if you will, right?
It's 100%. Listen, people, and this is interesting. People ask me this all the time. They say, what kind of coach are you? Are you a business coach, a marketing coach, a mindset coach, blah, blah, blah. There's hundreds of modalities. And it has to, in order for it to work, and the reason that I believe that we have been successful as we have been over the past 28 years is it's a holistic approach. It's not just about business, and it's not just about marketing. It's not just about mindset and all the others. It's all of them. Because you can be exceptional at business processes, systems, and procedures. That doesn't mean you know how to market or sell. You can be thinking positive. You know, I remember when The Secret came out and people would phone me and say, oh my goodness, I watched The Secret and I set my goals. And I said, okay, well, what are you doing about it? And they're like, pardon? Well, have you taken any, quantified, predetermined action steps? And they're like, well, it didn't say that in the movie.
If you build it, it'll come, right?
It's true.
So the thing that people have to do as business owners is they have to make an assessment of where they're at. And most of the time they don't know where to start. Now that one of the interesting things I find about you've had so much success, you've helped so many small business owners, is you've created this free assessment where they can kind of assess where the business is at. Where are you at? What level you're at? What are some of the things that you're looking for, or that someone can find out in that free assessment?
So, it's interesting. Some people are very hesitant to do the assessment.
Yeah.
And I've had people actually phone us and talk to one of our team members and then book an appointment and want to speak with me. And I'll ask them, have you done it? And they'll say, well, no, I already know what the problem is. I want to be very clear about something. If you as an entrepreneur, you're watching and you're listening to this interview right now, if you know what the problem is, you would have fixed it already. And I know that comes across as brash and harsh to some people, and
it's just true.
They're sitting there listening to this right now, like, oh my God, who does this guy think he is? Here's the reality behind this. When you know you can fix something, you do it. I don't care if it's your lawnmower. I don't care if it's your kitchen sink. I don't care if it's a relationship. You take the steps that you know you need to fix it. If you're running a business and you have hit some kind of a roadblock, a stumbling block, you'll do what you can to fix it. And if you don't succeed, it's very difficult to be honest about this for most people and say, I don't have what it takes. Maybe I'm really, really good at what I do. I'm a great consultant. I'm a great plumber. I'm a great welder. I'm whatever it is. But there's this one thing. And part of it is that scaling, right? They can see through that glass ceiling and go, oh my goodness, I know I can do better. I know I can get to this room. I know I can take a month's worth of holidays a year, but right. And so one of the things I say to people, if you can go away from your business for 1 month, 4 weeks, and it doesn't implode or go bankrupt, then you're an entrepreneur. And I get pushed back from that sometimes, but that's a harsh reality. You have to know where you want to go. You have to know what has to happen. But if you don't have a destination, we call it a destination, we call it a goal, we call it an objective, whatever it is. If you were to go outside right now, get into your car, and God forbid something happened and you didn't remember where you're going or who you were or any of those things, you probably would end up driving in circles. So you have to know where you're going. You have to have a destination. And then what we have the privilege to do, and I have the privilege to do with some of the folks I get to work with, is we say, okay, where are we going? And then we reverse engineer that. There's a financial component. And once we understand the financial component, then we can assign specific high leverage activities. And the ones we shouldn't be doing, we don't worry about. We say, how do we download, delegate, and automate those? And we find a way to deal with those because they do need to get done, as most entrepreneurs say. But then we put the focus and the emphasis on those high leverage activities. Those HLAs are the things that are going to move you on those small bite-sized pieces incrementally towards your goal or objective, or the destination, as I like to call it. And I think that's the key. People say, well, we've been talking about goals for decades. Perfect. You're right. We've been talking about productivity for decades. That's true. But do you actually understand it? The average output of workers today in the United States is about 4 hours a day out of 24.
Uh-oh.
And I ask, entrepreneurs, I said, do you have staff? They say, yeah. I say, what do you think, based on that, that very generalized idea of 4 hours out of 24 that are productive, if we could get 1 hour of high leverage work, 1 more hour of productivity from your team members, so it was 5 hours during your 8 or 9 that they spend with you, what would happen to your bottom line at the end of the year? And they're like, oh my goodness, you have no idea, Shawn. I'm like, well, actually I do. Right.
And Shawn, I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs, small business owners listening right now. Maybe they're running faster on the treadmill and they're thinking, wow, they know they've been running into obstacles. They know that there's kind of a ceiling that they're stuck under. And guys, if you're getting the same results and you're not growing your business by at least 20 to 50% every single year, then you're in this boat. Mm-hmm. And you can pray and hope that somehow you're going to magically figure it out, or you can find someone like Shawn, who's already been down the road, not only himself in building a 9-figure business, but helping so many other business owners to break out of what's holding them back. And if you don't know what you don't know, you're not going to be able to get there. And that's why it's so important that you take action. So you might be listening saying, wow, this is great. This is good stuff. He's pointing out a lot of my blind spots and weaknesses. But the next step is to take action. So how can they take action and move forward to figuring out what's stopping them and maybe even, get this assessment themselves?
So listen, I think there's a couple of things that are very important. The assessment is as well. I mean, you can go to changeyourresults.com. Okay. And you can, and as a matter of fact, there's a brand new website coming in the next couple of weeks, but the assessment will be there. Okay. And they can click on the assessment, take the assessment. The other thing that they can do too, and this is, I think imperative, conversations are everything. Being able to engage in a conversation around specifics. And a lot of times this is a challenge for some of us who are entrepreneurs, but call us. There's a toll-free number on the website, North America wide. Pick up the phone, call us. And it's, if someone's editing this, we can go 1-877-258-2643. And they can reach out to us, and you'll talk to an incredible young lady by the name of Rochelle. And you can let her know that, you saw and heard me here and that you want to have a conversation, because here's the important part. Most people today, about 98% of people will talk incredible amounts about what they want to do. But in most cases, it's less than 1% that actually take those action steps that you just referred to a moment ago. To say, listen, you know what? It's great to talk about it. It's great to have these great, big, hairy, audacious goals, but I need to actually see and realize on those. And so when coaching is a holistic process where it involves walking hand in hand and side by side with somebody who's been there to collapse timeframes and avoid potholes. And I think that's the key. This doesn't mean you're never going to fail. You're going to fail. Remember, failure is your tuition. What this means is you're going to say, okay, here's where I want to go, and actually have a plan in place instead of worrying about fires. And one of the things I've done, and I'll share this, I think it's important, is last year we came out with something called, 2 years ago rather, called Your Freedom Journal. And I think we sold about, 27,000 copies in 3 months.
Unbelievable.
And for this year, we came out with something called Your Freedom Planner. And there's a page in this for every day of the year. And there's a page every week that you, at the end of the week, and this is not a lot of time, it's about 7 minutes or 8 minutes in the morning, 7 or 8 minutes before you go to bed. And it's very interesting things that we sometimes forget about. So remember, every day we want to focus on 3 high leverage activities. And so at the end of the day, we can mark them off as complete, waiting for, so perhaps it's for someone else to bring something, or it's logistics or whatever it is, defer to, but with an explanation. Not just, I want to defer it because, I don't know, the sun isn't as bright as it was yesterday. Delegate. So again, the delegate, download, and automate. Can we actually, is this something we shouldn't be doing? And we've given permission to ourselves to have somebody else help us do this. And then completed by. So maybe it's a project that's a multiple day or multiple week or months, and we're able to put that date in. So we actually see that. And then we go on a daily basis. What are you grateful for? What are you learning? What decisions have you made? How are you feeling? What epiphany did you have today? How are you going to collapse timeframes? In other words, how do you get where you want to go in less time? And your recent wins, because we all win, but sometimes we forget to celebrate that. right?
No,
So you can go to
question.
highproductivitystore.com. See if the camera will pick that
There
up.
it is, guys. Highproductivitystore.com. You also have changeyourresults.com, where you can tap into that free assessment. And the 877 number is 877-258-2643. So there's options, but it's on you to take action, right? Don't be
So
passive and take the action so that you can move your business forward and figure out where sometimes we don't even know what's stopping us, but a lot of the time it's what Shawn's explaining. We're working on the wrong things that are not going to grow the business.
at the end of last year, I came out with a book called Daily Motivation Volume 1, and it's got my mug on the front of it. And what we've done is something really interesting. I've watched, worked with, done case studies over the years with an incredible amount of people. There's one page for every day. It's each page is dated January 1 through December 31. And sometimes it's a paragraph, sometimes it's a sentence, sometimes maybe it's 3 paragraphs. There's obviously special days when we talk about, whether it's New Year's or Christmas or Valentine's Day or whatever those special days of the year are. And there's a special, message on those days. We have done 3 print runs of this. And now I didn't anticipate that to happen. I'd be very honest with you. I knew we'd sell some, but I didn't anticipate that we would sell. I think we're well over the $30,000 mark since end of November of 2021. Wow. It's available anywhere that you can get on the highproductivitystore.com, or you can go to Amazon or
you know what I like about it, Shawn? It's the daily, right? Are we a little bit better today than we were yesterday? Are we making 1% more progress today? And if you add all that up, all of a sudden, 6 months, 12 months, 2, 3, 4 years, a decade, that's where the results happen. But if we aren't making the daily improvements, then we're going to be at the same spot next year that we were this year.
It compounds. It's cumulative. You're 100% right. And you know what? Sometimes when we start, it's like when you decide you're going to get into shape and you get on that treadmill and you work hard and you're, sweat, blood, and tears, as we say, and you're a week, 2, 3, 4 month in, you're like, oh my goodness, like I'm not seeing the results. And you step on the scale and you've gone up 2 or 3 pounds. And what's interesting is it's that tenacity, it's that persistence is that in the end pays off. And I think that applies in all aspects of life. You talked about taking action, and I want to share something. There's a young gentleman off the West Coast. He contacted me. This is now going back about 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years ago, I guess. And he said, Shawn, I'm interested in working with you. I was referred to you. And I said, awesome, let's have a conversation. So we did. He actually flew to where I am in Calgary. And we met, had lunch, had a conversation. And he'd done well by most standards, but not good enough. He was probably generating, I'm going to guess, about $200,000 a year. Now, most people go, oh my goodness, I'm pushing that $250,000 mark. This guy wasn't satisfied. He looked at satisfaction as settling. Okay. So he didn't want to settle. He called me on December 31st of 2021. And he said, Shawn, I know I've had ups and downs. I know I've challenged you, every step of the way. And he did. But he said, I never gave up. He said, there were certainly roadblocks and there were times I wanted to throw the towel in. He said, but I just came back from my accountant's office this morning. And he said, this calendar year, I netted $1.5 million. That's a pretty significant shift. And for a lot of people, 200 grand is a lot of money, and it is. I'm not discounting that. But being able to go in a very short period of time, a couple of years, to go from, a couple $100,000 to $1.5 million, it speaks to a lot of his dedication and the fact that he just went out and executed. He didn't say why. He didn't, and this is interesting, and this is what happens when you take action. Listen, I don't care where you come from, what your background is, what your history is, where your parents were, how much education you do or don't have. I don't care what your religion is. There is an opportunity waiting for you, but it's up to you to take that step. And that's the action you were speaking about a moment ago. And I think for anybody and everybody that's listening, pick up that phone, call the toll-free number that we talked about a moment ago, go to that website, do the assessment, book an appointment, and just say, hey, I want to have a conversation. There's no charge for a conversation. And once you start to understand how it changes the dynamic of your business and the outcomes, and that's what it's all about. It's all about the results. That's it. It has the massive impact that rolls backward in your life and your relationships.
Wow, that is a very powerful ending to bringing up full circle the entire episode, everything. So many value bombs that Shawn dropped on you guys today. But the most important thing, again, is to take that action. Call him at 877-258-2643. Go to changeyourresults.com, do the free assessment, and figure out what's holding you back. And if you're persistent, you can go from where you're at to $200,000 a year in net income, all the way up to 1.5 million. But it's on you to make that change and to take action. And when you do, you'll be so happy you do. But it starts one day at a time, getting a little bit better. Shawn, thank you so much for being a guest. The final word is yours, Shawn.
Can I offer a gift?
Please.
Go to Game Changer Time. So Game Changer Time, time.com. And it's a movie that I was involved in, and it's free to watch.
All right, guys, gamechangertime.com. I'm going to watch it right now. There's a cool big, we've got some awesome people there that I am familiar with. Wow, a lot of amazing entrepreneurs on this movie, it looks like. So check it out, gamechangertime.com. Free gift for everybody. Shawn, thank you so much for being a guest.
Are you looking for more seven-figure secrets, content, or even how you can launch your own recession-proof business? Then check out sevenfigures.com. That's the digit 7, FIGURES.com, where we share more videos, stories, strategies, funding solutions, entrepreneurial education, and even the secret business type that's recession-proof. Thank you for listening, and if you're finding value in our podcast, please give us a 5-star and invite others to join the club.